Hi, everybody. I'm here with Vicki Saunders, and we're going to be talking about recruiter enablement. So, Vicki, give us a quick introduction to you and your background.
Hi, so I'm Vicki. I look after employer brand and EVP and have done for about 8, 9 years now in different organisations. So most recently Currys, before that BAE Systems, before that Boots, and yeah, I'm passionate about employer brand. I'm passionate about EVP, and yeah, just thought I'd want to share the love and support this work.
Great. So, employer brand and EVP are both really important aspects of recruiter enablement. What do recruiters need to know in terms of like how to phrase the messages that they send out to people, and how do they direct people to information that they need about what it's like to work in that different organization. And recruiters need to be like the brand advocates for the employer brand, the EVP, that type of thing. I think. What from your perspective, what would be recruiter enablement from like your vantage point?
Yeah, so I don't want to repeat what other people have said on the other video. So I thought um, I'd talk about how I think the recruitment team really need to be thought of a bit like how we talk about a child is raised by a village. There are loads of people in the organisation that they can reach out to, or they can approach to support them, because they're not experts in marketing or personal branding or storytelling, which are the three things I'd like to talk to you about. But there are people usually in the organisation who can help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And you're completely correct. And actually other people have talked about the fact that when when like in All Hands, for example, Manjari Sinha was talking about the way that she actively brings business leaders in from
Yeah,
other teams to talk about their priorities and all that kind of thing. So you're
yeah.
right, it takes a village to raise. So could you give us some practical examples then in that case? You talked about marketing and you talked about storytelling, for example. Like give us some practical examples of the types of things that people should
Yeah.
know about.
So storytelling, isn't new in employer branding, is it? We know that telling authentic stories through the voices of our colleagues is incredibly powerful. Um, but I think there's probably some quick wins for recruiters in this space, because I think there are people in comms who can support them in storytelling techniques, first of all. But if it's not about techniques, I think my top tip would be to keep it personal, to
Yeah,
think about what's important to the candidate that they're talking to.
yeah,
Ask that candidate and then relate it to their own experience of working in the organisation. If there isn't anything relevant about you as a recruiter, as an individual, that you think that candidate would want to hear about, then my next idea would be that you talk about people you have placed in the organisation, what they've gone on to do, what promotions they've got, what achievements, what milestone projects they've been involved in, but also stuff like where they've got involved in ERGs
hmm
or they've got involved in CSR initiatives. All
hmm
of these things help tell the story of the EVP, but by relating it to people that they know. And
yeah.
I think there's something in that. We started to do it at BAE Systems, actually with our RPO. It wasn't even an in-house recruiter team, but yeah, we asked them to think about who they'd placed in the organisation, and use those stories when they're talking to candidates, because they are the front line of talking about the EVP recruiters.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that the uh, benefits of using real life case studies, it creates rapport with the candidate. It's familiarity for that
Yeah,
candidate as well, because they can
yeah,
see themselves in that background. It's real, so it brings it to life for the
yeah.
individual. What about, so if I know about Sarah and Billy, who I brought into the organization, and I can firsthand talk to potential candidates about Sarah and Billy and their experience. what about the person who comes into my job next, or the 3 colleagues who are closest to me who also could use knowing about Sarah and Billy? Is the best way to do this to turn it into visual communication assets, or what do you
Yeah,
think?
you could write some nice little pen portraits, little stories that you could use alongside battle cards. I love battle cards. I think they're really powerful. But battle cards, I think, shouldn't actually just be role specific. I think you need to use them kind of side by side with life stage insights as well. So for somebody who's coming into accounting, you will talk about different stuff if they're in their 20s than if they're in their 50s.
Probably, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but I definitely think that sharing those resources, across the team, and another way that I think that recruiters can support each other is in personal branding as well, because I see recruiters. I mean, they all look at LinkedIn profiles all day, every day, right? And how
Yes.
often do they look at each other's profiles and go, you know what, with a fresh pair of eyes, how about maybe phrasing this differently? You know what I mean? Or get the employer branding team, if you've got one, to do a little mini health check on the personal brand of each one of the recruiters. That's what I mean about bringing more resources and expertise from comms, from marketing, just
Yeah.
from the other colleagues in recruitment, to support each other with some of these things.
Yes. And in terms of the way that you would deliver that, would you do like classroom-based type stuff, or learning modules, or?
Yeah. So we've done lunch and learns,
Yeah.
which are a bit like I suppose, a bite-sized masterclass.
Yeah.
We do those on things for LinkedIn, that, because actually everything changes so fast, especially when the algorithm changes.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
keep everybody's insights and tips all up to date. But we also do them on personal branding. We absolutely do. On EVP, when I've done any EVP work, we actually do more like a half-day immersion session on EVP, and then share the battle cards afterwards, and all of that kind of thing, because I think it takes more to get your head into it than just reading some prompts on a flow chart, which is how we
Yeah.
normally lay out
Yeah.
battle cards.
Yeah.
But yeah, lunch and learns, we just do those frequently.
Yeah. Okay, one thing I just want to quickly go back to was, you said, the messaging for people in their 20s might be a bit different to me messaging for people in their 50s, for example. And that just makes me think about the concept of personas. What are the what place do you think personas do have in the context of enabling recruiters to get better results?
I struggle a little bit with the word personas. And I used to use them like bread and butter when back in my marketing advertising days.
Yeah.
Um, but I tend to talk about talent segment portraits now,
Okay.
because I think it's really important that personas can be a bit too specific about one person. We always used to talk about John in Reading,
Yeah.
who plays computer games, and have a little picture of John with his computer game and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there's a real danger for, in the wrong hands with the wrong eyes, for personas to be too narrow and to be taken too literally. So
Yes.
I tend to develop talent segment portraits as part of
Yeah.
EVP work. And there we purposely choose a picture of a group of people who
Yeah.
are all in that talent segment portrait, etc., etc. We use it to build all of the EVP messaging, including, well, before that, we use it to structure the focus groups, how to segment the data when you get it back from the quant survey, all of that kind of thing. But then absolutely, talent segment portraits, when it comes out of EVP stage, I love to share them across the whole of HR, so that policy can use them when they're developing new policies, especially stuff like family policies or transgender reassignment policies or
Yeah.
fertility, all of those kind of things, right through to the wellbeing team, the L&D team. I love to make sure everyone in HR has got it, because it weaves those strands of the COE together,
Yes.
around the EVP being a foundational piece. And then when we do take it into employer brand, I take the talent segment portraits and use them to develop battle cards or cheat sheets.
Yeah.
Tend to call them. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Vicki, I know there's an awful lot more we can talk about on this. And so maybe we'll do it again sometime and get some more insights from you. But I for now, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time to join me. It's been really useful. There's lots of nuggets in here that are going to be very useful for the people watching. And where should people contact you? LinkedIn best?
LinkedIn, yeah. Vicki Saunders, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Vicki. All the best.
Thanks, Adam.